is hormones that bind to intracellular receptors. So all your hormones belonging to the steroid class belong to this group because they are basically lipophilic. Now understand that steroids basically belong to the class of lipids. So they are hydrophobic. That means they are water insoluble. But because of their lipophilic nature, they can easily pass through the biological membranes. We all know that biological membranes are semi-permeable. So this lipophilic molecules can pass through the biological membranes and directly go inside the cell and then bind to a particular receptor and activate their response. On the contrary, peptide hormones cannot pass through the biological membranes. So they will have surface receptors. So the hormone is released, it binds to a receptor on the surface and then elicits the series of reactions via a series of internal molecules called as second messengers. So the primary messengers are your hormones. After the binding of the hormone to the receptor on the cell surface, this binding activates a series of other messengers which we call them as second messengers. So you have two important types of second messaging systems in human body. One is cyclic AMP, second one is phosphatidylinosytol or calcium as a second messenger. So you have various examples, hormones like adrenocorticotrophin hormones, follicle stimulating hormone, glucagon, they use cyclic AMP as second messengers, whereas hormones like thyroid, gonadotropin, gastrins, they use phosphatidylinosytol as the second messengers. So basically steroids, you will have adrenocortical hormones on sex hormones. In sex hormones, in female sex hormones, you have estrogens and progesterone. Male sex hormones, you have androgens which release testosterone. Again, based upon the peptide hormones, insulin, glucagon are classic examples. Insulin has about 51 amino acids in its structure. Amino acid derivatives, most of your thyroid hormones, and there are various others like prostaglandins and then cytokinins, compounds that are derived from various other compounds. Now, you can understand from this tabular column how we divide the hormones based upon the receptor that they bind to. So, your group 1, the second messenger is directly the binding of the hormone to the receptor. They will have a hormone responsive element on the DNA. Binding of this will automatically change the gene transcription, produces the necessary protein and cause that particular effect. Now understand that the ultimate executionary molecules are always proteins. So how this hormone signal reaches the protein is what is the interesting pathway. So all your hormones like estrogens, progesterones, corticosteroids, thyroid hormone, they all work via intracellular receptors. Then hormones that bind to cell surface receptors, these are a huge list of hormones that work via cyclic AMP, and you can also look at what is their major function. So you talk about adrenocorticotrophic hormones, they release adrenocorticosteroids. So follicle stimulating hormone, it helps in ovulation and estrogen synthesis. Now epinephrine, you can see it is produced from adrenal medulla, but it increases heart rate, blood pressure, and it mobilizes glycogenolysis in liver. What is glycogenolysis? That is breakdown of glycogen into glucose 1-phosphate to glucose 6-phosphate to energy production. Then you talk about hormones that use phosphatidylinosytol or calcium as second messengers. You have examples like cholecystokinin, gastrin, they all work for stimulation of digestion. Then there are some hormones which are very prominent but whose second messenger is not very clearly known. Surprisingly, growth hormone is one such hormone. There is a lot of research happening across to understand how growth hormone works via which messenger. So hormones like oxytocin, insulin, their second messengers are not very clearly understood. So in your first group of hormones, as I said, first the hormone and the receptor combine to form a hormone receptor complex. Now this complex, because it is lipophilic, can directly pass through the biological membrane, get inside the cells, and there they bind to a region on the DNA that's called as a hormone responsive element. So whatever is the protein that has to be produced, its respective gene on the DNA will have a region where this hormone receptor binding will result in the activation of that HRE, because of which there is a transcription of that particular gene, produces mRNA, mRNA is translated and the specific protein is produced, which ultimately gives rise to the biochemical response. So this is a kind of cascade of reactions that will happen from when the hormone is released till the response is elicited.